Welcome to MW Outdoors. Today we're going to make teriyaki sweet and spicy jerky made out of venison. First thing I did is take 2 pounds of venison and I cut it into 1/4 inch strips. Venison I use are the rounds. You can use the chops as well. What I do different here is I will mix the dry spices up first and I'll let that season onto the meat for a couple hours, and then I'll mix up my wet and then I'll let that set overnight. For our dry seasonings, we start out with our curing salt. That's some Morton's right there. And we'll use some regular ionized salt. We have garlic powder. We have onion powder, black pepper, crushed red pepper, and chili powder. To mix up these seasonings, I'll add them into a small cup like this, and I'll use half of the recipe. I'll put it on the meat here, then I'll turn this meat, and I'll put the other half on. Now everything I use here will be 2 times because I have 2 pounds of meat here. We'll mix up enough for 1 pound, we'll put it on the top, we'll turn the meat, we'll mix up the other half just for 1 pound of meat, and we'll add that, and then we'll let that set a couple hours in the refrigerator. Alright, in our cup, what we have mixed so far is 1 tablespoon of curing salt, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of regular salt, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1 teaspoon of onion powder. We will get this onto the meat. Then we will take 2 tablespoons of brown sugar and we'll cover that on top of this meat. Then we'll flip it over and repeat this. So let's add our ingredients to our meat, and we're going to sprinkle that on top. We'll just put it in our hands and spread it over top of the meat. This is called a dry rub. Here's what our meat looks like now that we've added those dry seasonings. Now what we want to do is we want to add our pepper, black pepper, and our crushed red pepper, and our brown sugar. And we'll add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar on top of this. The pepper is up to you and how strong you want it. Now we've added our black pepper, we sprinkled that on top, and our crushed red pepper. So let's get that brown sugar on and that other side done. We have now completed both sides here. This is what it looks like when it's ready to set in the fridge. Let that set for 2 to 4 hours, and in the meantime we can get our wet seasonings mixed up. For mixing up our wet seasonings, we're going to take them and put them in a plastic bag. So we're going to use enough liquids for 2 pounds of meat and mix it all up at once, and then we will let that meat soak in there for overnight. To start with, we're going to take 4 tablespoons of the Worcestershire sauce, 4 tablespoons of the molasses, 4 tablespoons of maple syrup, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, add 4 teaspoons of the liquid smoke, 1/2 cup of the soy sauce, and 1.5 cups of the teriyaki sauce. Okay, we just took the meat out of the refrigerator for 4 hours. So this is with the dry seasoning. We have mixed up our wet seasonings. Now we're just going to add the meat to that, shake it up, and get that in the refrigerator and let that sit overnight for about 8 hours. Adding the honey while it's cooking is a real important step in this. If you add it in the mixes, it doesn't work as well. We like it added as it's cooking, and yes, it will come out tacky, but boy is it good that way. Okay, now our meat has sit in the refrigerator overnight, so we got a good 8 hours in there. Next thing we want to do is take this meat out, and we want to put it on these trays here in the sink and let them drip for a while. So we're going to give them about 20 minutes in the sink, get all this extra liquid that's on them to drip off, because we don't want that in our dehydrator. It's a mess to clean up. So this will really help. Now if you really like it spicy, this is another time to add more spices. Some of the pepper does go off into the liquid. We'll take this liquid and you can save that for another batch, or if you're done, dispose of it. Okay, we got our pepper on there. We're going to let these sit here for another 10 minutes, and then we're going to get them in the dehydrator. Once they get half done, we'll flip each one of these pieces. Once we flip them, then we'll add honey on the top of those. We'll let that cook till it's about 1/4 of the way from being done, and then we'll add honey one more time. Alright, here our jerky has cooked for a couple of hours. It's starting to dry out. So now we're going to take our honey and we're going to add on top of that. Alright, we have our honey, pour it on top. You can see it here. Now you could take a little brush and smooth that around if you want, or you can just leave it sit like this. Now when this gets to be 75% done, we'll add honey again and then let her finish cooking. Alright, here's our final product, and I already taken this piece and tried a piece. Really spicy, sweet, teriyaki taste. So now you just let this cool and it will toughen up even a little bit more. So thank you for joining us on NW Outdoors, and I hope this recipe gives you a start on making your jerky.